Hey, what's going on, No Nation? It's CJ Wilson here with DoakTalk. I'm here to bring you some information in regards to this upcoming official visit weekend for FSU. We have another big one on deck with some important prospects that will be on campus. So we're going to take a little deep dive and give you some information on those guys. Before we get started, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. It does a world of favors for the channel as well and DoakTalk in general. First up on the docket, Kaliq Lockett, five-star receiver out of Texas. This kid is big time. He's the kid I'm watching the most this weekend as far as the official visitors, just to keep my eye out on a little bit. If you guys remember, we had Josh Newberg from On 3 on the show, and he had an interview with Khed Lockett, and he stated that FSU is firmly within his top four and is one of his leaders within his top four. That top four includes Texas, Texas A&M, and LSU. If you guys go back to his recruitment, he took not official, I'm sorry, he took an unofficial visit to FSU during the spring for the first time ever. And that visit pretty much opened his eyes in regards to what FSU could bring to the table. And then immediately shot up his list. And he's followed up with an official visit and scheduled that for the summer. So we are here now for that weekend, and we'll see how things can play out. Dynamic playmaker, 6'2", 175 pounds, can make plays left and right. I do think Texas is probably the favorite, and it's going to be hard to grab a five-star receiver out of Texas. But I do think FSU putting themselves in good position for this recruitment, and we'll see how things play out after the official visit. This is a guy that I'm watching out for. Let's stick with the receivers. Josh Moore, four-star receiver out of West Broward. Man, this kid is big time, big time, big time. 6'4", 205 pounds. I think this kid is very underrated. He's a top 200 kid in the country, but in my opinion, if he went to a bigger school down in South Florida, he'll be a fringe five-star, highly rated four-star, a top 50 type player in the country. But none of that really matters when you look at the film. Like I say, he's a dynamic playmaker, 6'4", 205 pounds. You have Georgia, University of Florida, and Miami or other schools he's considering. I think this is a FSU and Georgia battle at the top. So it's very important to knock out this official visit for Josh Moore. He's been on campus multiple times and had nothing but glowing things to say about FSU. We'll see if the Florida State Seminoles, Ron Dugans, Mike Norvell, and staff can continue those vibes with Josh as we go into his official visit weekend. Malik Clark, a four-star receiver out of Rock Hill, South Carolina, which is in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, metro area. This is an interesting one as well. We offered late. We offered this kid on May 21st, 2024, and we immediately shot this kid's recruitment, and he followed up with an official visit this upcoming weekend. 6'1", 183 pounds. This kid's a dynamic playmaker with blazing speed, runs a 10.5 and a 100-meter dash. Has the University of North Carolina, South Carolina, and NC State are other schools he's considering. I think North Carolina has the lead for Clark due to having a relationship longer and being more consistent within the recruitment. But again, I do think it's some type of interest in FSU, some mutual interest that made him schedule this official visit. So we'll see how this weekend go and see if FSU can shoot their shot, even though it's kind of late, and get into this recruitment and have something to say about the South Carolina receiver. Justus Terry, the number 7 player in the country, big five-star defensive tackle out of Georgia, 6'5", 275 pounds. This recruitment has been a little weird to say the least, right? This kid was initially committed to Texas, then he decommitted from Texas, and then immediately flipped to the USC Trojans. We get to this point in his recruitment. I think Georgia does have the momentum again. I think Georgia is in prime position to earn his commitment back and flip him from the USC Trojans. FSU has done a good job recruiting this kid. They've been recruiting him since his freshman year, stay consistent with the communication. But I do think Georgia is the leader for this recruitment. We'll see how things play out on this official visit to see if FSU can crack in and be a serious contender with USC and the University of Georgia. But nonetheless, I think Georgia does lead in this recruitment. And this is the type of defensive tackles you guys have been asking for Odell to get on campus. Well, he has them on campus. So we'll see how things play out with the five-star defensive tackle, Justus Terry, one of the better players in the country. Four-star linebacker, four-star linebacker Zaydrius Rainey-Sale out of Washington, State. Again, 6'2", 220 pounds, four-star linebacker. He camped at FSU last year, impressed Randy Shannon and Mike Norvell, ended up earning an offer. FSU had a lot of momentum with this recruitment at this point in time, even got some crystal balls in FSU's favor, but I do think distance will slow things down in regards to FSU in his process. He ended up committing to Washington. Decommitted from Washington once DeBoer ended up leaving Washington for the University of Alabama, but they are still in his recruitment along with Oregon State and UCLA. FSU is the only East Coast school that's in his recruitment. So if FSU could get over the distance hurdle and kind of hit that home with the family, I do think they have a good shot because everything else, every other box rather, checks for FSU and they're in a good spot there. So I think the main thing is going to be distance. So we'll see if they can combat that on his official visit weekend and let the family know that this FSU is the best place for him and he'll be taken care of on the East Coast. But I do think Washington and UCLA are probably the main threats for Rainey-Sale. We'll see how it plays out down the stretch. But again, this is an interesting one, and Randy Shannon has done a good job with the linebacker board. Four-star defensive back, Jabori Anton from Louisiana. This kid is big time, man. I'm telling you, he's a big-time playmaker. 6'1", 175 pounds, real athletic, checks all the boxes in regards to being a dynamic cornerback. He is committed to LSU. And as you guys know, taking a Louisiana kid out of LSU that's already committed to them, it rarely happens at all, right? But FSU has a lot of Louisiana ties on staff with the defensive back coach Patrick Surtain being from New Orleans. You have recruiting coordinator and running backs coach Yak Johnson being from there as well. As well as a bunch of players on the team that's from the state of Louisiana. So we do have those Louisiana ties. If any team could flip a LSU commit from Louisiana, I think it could be FSU due to those ties. So we'll see how things play out with Jaboree's official visit. Spots are limited for the defensive back room, but it's a plethora of guys we're after in regards to the board for FSU. So we have a lot of options on deck with limited spots, which is a good problem to have. Four-star safety Jordan Young from the North Carolina Monroe area. Top 100 type of guy. This is a kid that visited FSU in February for junior day, and he loved the visit. Eyes lit up, immediately scheduled an official visit, didn't realize, what FSU brought to the table because that was his first visit. So he immediately set up an official visit after that. But I do think it was unfortunate because he's been to Clemson multiple times. He has built those relationships with the Clemson Tigers. I think they currently lead for his recruitment, but we'll see if we could go ahead and throw our hat on the table and knock things out of the park on this official visit. Like I stated, he really enjoyed it, the unofficial for the junior day. We'll see how it goes on the official when more focus is on him and there's more information, more time, more things he can see. But in my opinion, I think the Clemson Tigers lead for Jordan Young. But like I said, it's a very deep cornerback and safety board for FSU. So we're totally good in that position. Again, make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to keep you updated throughout this process as far as official visits for FSU, any type of news. Make sure you guys check out DoakTalk. We have you covered. Go Noles.